If you have hit a scalability limit, prioritize scaling over everything else. First, let's define what we mean by scalability. Scalability is the ability of your servers to handle scale ability. Scale can mean more users. It can mean each user storing more data in your system. For example, in OneDrive, a user who stores 10 terabytes of data imposes more load on the system than someone who stores only 1 terabyte. It can mean frequency of use. People who use an app all day impose more load on the system, on the servers. So the ability of the servers to handle the load is scalability. Scalability is often confused for other things. So let's get our definitions straight before we proceed, because otherwise we'll be talking apples and oranges. Scalability does not mean adding more features, that is extensibility. It does not mean data loss prevention or security. Those are separate concepts. It does not mean reliability as well. Now, what's the difference between reliability and scalability? Scalability is when your system is unscalable if its performance degrades after a certain load, after a certain number of users, let's just say, to simplify it. So if it works fine until, let's say, 10,000 users, then starts to slow down or whatever, that's unscalable. Whereas if it has problems 24/7, maybe it has some bugs, hangs, crashes, slowness, unreliability, you have to try 2-3 times for it to work, that is reliability. So reliability is problems that are independent of traffic. Scalability are problems that occur only at high traffic. And when we talk about scalability, let's keep this definition in mind. Companies often hit a scaling wall. What are the signs of this? The first sign you see is that the system becomes slow in peak hours. Every app has a time when most users are using it. With one of the companies I worked with, the peak was 9 a.m. to 1 in the afternoon. Now, if you're building an entertainment app, maybe the peak will be in the evening, like Netflix. But whatever the peak is, or some may have a weekday use, like a task tracking tool, I'm sure will be heavily used on weekdays and not weekends. Again, an entertainment app may be used more heavily on the weekends. So whatever the time may be, in this peak time, your system becomes slow. That's the first sign of a scaling bottleneck, that you have hit the limits of the system as you have built it. If you don't fix the problem, then it gets into the second stage. It's almost like a medical thing, right? The second stage, which is worse, is users start getting errors or the page doesn't load at all. Not just it loads slowly, it doesn't load at all. That is the second stage of problem. So these are the two signs of lack of scalability. Now, when you hit, there's a third sign also, which is you are forced to put in limits into your system, arbitrary limits to keep it scalable, to keep it working, sorry. So for example, say you have built a messaging app and you have groups. Groups impose a heavy load on the server for technical reasons, which I won't get into right now. So you may set a limit that a group can have, 100 members in it max. Your customers are demanding more. Your salespeople may have even sold your product as supporting more than 100 users. Maybe your competitors support more than 100. Maybe it's kind of expected to be able to have more than 100, because I've seen groups migrate from one service to another just for this reason. So when you have to put in these arbitrary limits, another example may be a time-based limit. So if you have an incident management tool where you create incidents to tackle production issues like a DevOps tool. Now, the tool itself, if it has limited scalability, it can support maybe only 10 incidents per minute. More than that are throttled. So, this kind of throttling. So, any kind of limit, it can be a static limit, it can be a time based limit, is a sign of limited scalability. So, these are the three signs. It becomes slow in peak hours, it gives errors in peak hours, you have put in arbitrary limits that customers are unhappy with. These are the three signs of limited scalability. When you see these signs, you should prioritize scalability over all the routine work like features, UX, more APIs, better APIs, supporting more platforms, reliability, security, everything else. Why is that? Because if you don't, soon you'll hit a wall. Your business will hit a wall. Your tech will no longer be able to keep up with your business. You will not be able to onboard new users. Your existing users will be unhappy. If you imagine a small island with a single power station and a certain number of houses, if more houses are built on the island, it stresses the power station. Unless you upgrade the power station, you will have a power cut. The grid will go down, then everyone will lose power. And people will be really unhappy. The best way to piss off users is to have this happen. The new features and enhancements you add may have a greater weightage in your mind, but they have a lower weightage in the user's mind typically. Whatever it is, they want it to work reliably. That's the first step. Because if you build a new feature, some people will use it, some won't. Whereas this is like a showstopper. So you will hit this wall. You won't be able to onboard new users. You won't be able to serve your existing users as well. When you hit the wall, sometimes I've seen business founders scramble and say, okay, let's fix this. Sure. But fixing can take a quarter or two depending on how bad the system is. Sometimes it can take only days. It really depends on the system and how much tech debt is, how well built it was, and so on. Typical startups which don't focus on these, they focus on quick growth, the system would be terrible, which means it will take a long time to make it scalable. And then you can't hit your head against the wall saying, I want it by this week. That's not going to happen. So, engineering projects take some time. You need to plan for them ahead of time. And these three things I've told you are early warnings of impending scalability crisis. Pay attention to the warnings and fix things before they become a showstopper for your business. If you'd like me to help you explore this and figure out what is the right thing to be done and then do it, my consulting link is in the description. Thank you.